And let it be known that I have in no way betrayed your trust. Let it be clear that access to criminal justice remains critical to me.
Our goal is to break the cycle of violence in this country. Let me repeat that. Our goal is to break the cycle.
Ladies and gentlemen, on Thursday, 4th September 2025, a special committee appointed by the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, to access and facilitate the compensation of anti-government protesters was sworn in office. A move that was not highly welcomed by many Kenyans who wondered whether the move was intended as a mockery to those that lost their loved ones in the demonstrations. More so, the question that many Kenyans were asking themselves is why now? Now, today morning, the truth has finally been exposed on why Ruto has made it his business to compensate the victims of the demonstrations of the year 2024 and the year 2025, where young men and women who took to the streets of Nairobi to protest against bad governance of President William Ruto were killed in cold blood. The swearing in of members of the panel of experts on compensation of victims of demonstrations and public protest took place on Thursday, with Professor Makao Motua being sworn in as chairperson and the LSK, the Law Society of Kenya President Faith ODHIAMBO, as the vice chairperson. The name of the LSK president became a topic of discussion on so many social media pages, many arguing that the LSK, which was to remain as the last hope of the people of the Republic of Kenya, has now been compromised. Also, apart from that, Faith ODHIAMBO, according to the intel we are receiving, she had refused the job to be the vice chairperson of the said committee. But after a call from President William Ruto, Faith ODHIAMBO went ahead to accept the job of becoming the person or the vice chair of the said committee. But let me take you back to the reason why President William Ruto is doing this right now. Today being on 5th of September 2025, the President of the Republic of Kenya is expected in the United States. He is expected to make a tour in the United States in the next few days, where he is supposed to be in the United States on 8th and on 9th and on 7th of this month, which means the president might be flying out of the country today. But one thing you don't know is that the president is flying out to the United States, where he is expected to address the 80th United Nations General Assembly in New York City, where the 80th session of the UN General Assembly will open on Tuesday, September 9th, 2025, at the UN headquarters in the New York City. This means that the president has to cleanse himself before addressing the United Nations. And that is why Kenyans have made it their business to ensure that President William Ruto's dirty linen is washed in public before he addresses the United Nations. And those that have taken that stand to ensure they call the United Nations to action when the president is arriving there in a few hours is none other than Advocate NDEGWA NJIRU. And this is what NDEGWA NJIRU went to tell the United Nations. Stand up for Kenya, exposing failure and demanding justice at UNGA. As Ruto takes the floor at the United General Assembly to spew his usual lies, we Kenyans, both at home and in the diaspora, stand united in the stand-up campaign to expose the harsh realities his administration tries to hide. While he speaks, remember the abducted youth, the protesters are shot down, the angry families, and the terrorized border communities of Mandera. Kenya is drowning in a failed health and education system, rampant corruption and blunted wastage in State House, escalating insecurity and crushing hopelessness among our youth. We reject empty speeches and image polishing. What Kenya demands is accountability, genuine reform and justice. At UNGA, we will stand strong, refusing to be silenced until real change comes. At UNGA, we shall stand in solidarity and shout one term Komboa Kenya. When Ruto speaks at UNGA, he will obviously not be representing the majority of us as our president. He will be representing the reality of a man who has failed his people, a man who has failed an entire nation. The world must not fall for the Ruto's sweet, well-polished speech. It's a lie. It's a mere puff and empty rhetorics. Those who can protest online must carry on with this campaign. Now, the president is expected to address the United Nations. But another thing that is going to happen soon. Remember, we have all received the news that the United Nations is relocating its offices in Nairobi, and President William Ruto cannot in any way have something interfere with that. He wants to make sure that his dirty linen isn't washed in public. And if it is washed in public, he has a defense for it. And that is why he has moved so swiftly to ensure that the special committee that was set up to access and facilitate the compensation of the demonstrators shot and killed in the streets of Nairobi during the 2024 and 2025 demonstration is actually sworn into office. Apart from that, President William Ruto, either today or tomorrow, we are receiving intel of a possible military operation that will be sanctioned in Mandera to kick out the Jubilant forces to avoid him being questioned in the United Nations on the possible invasion of the Kenyan borders by foreign troops, which he himself has failed to address. Now let's get back to the issue of one Faith ODHIAMBO. She was a woman of integrity, as seen by many Kenyans. But now she has taken up a role as the person that is going to be the vice chair of the compensation committee set up by President William Ruto. But now Kenyans have spoken on social media on what really Faith ODHIAMBO has done as the president of LSK. Now, reading a dossier that has been publicized by one Cyprian Nyakundi, he says, I have seen LSK President Faith ODHIAMBO on why she accepted to sit on Ruto's so-called victim compensation panel. Unless she can add Kenyans a clear formula that quantifies the value of human life, all the flowery talk is just noise. You don't soothe grieving families with speeches. You don't wash away blood with panel appointments. What matters is justice. What can be measured. What matters is justice that can be measured, not vague promises cooked up as a duty. Until Faith ODHIAMBO shows us how exactly they will calculate the compensation for a child, a father or a mother killed in the streets, everything else is nothing more than politics disguised as empathy. It goes ahead to say, the sanctity of the law society of Kenya has been defiled. By taking up a seat on Ruto's victim compensation panel, Faith ODHIAMBO drapes herself in respectability while leading credibility to a regime that is actively killing its own people. History is unforgiving on collaborators. Those who enable crimes, who polish the boots of power, who help dictators wash blood off their hands, they are worse than the dictator himself because they make impunity look legitimate. LSK was meant to be the last guardrail of justice, the shield of the powerless. Today, that shield has been lowered for 30 pieces of silver and a false promise of reparations. Justice cannot be served on a panel crafted by the very hands that ordered the shootings. Faith may speak of duty and empathy, but unless she can show us how the life of a Kenyan protester will be quantified, all we see is betrayal disguised as service. And betrayal by those entrusted to uphold justice cuts deeper than the violence of the state itself. History never spares betrayers. They are remembered with contempt, cast aside by the people they claimed to serve, and judged far more harshly than the tyrants they choose to shield. That is the fate Faith Odhiambo has chosen. She has chosen betrayal. To even sit on a panel that claims it will compensate victims of state killings is to cheapen the sanctity of life itself. Human life cannot be reduced to a formula, a spreadsheet, or a payout. No shilling can equal the blood of a son guard down for demanding justice. No check can silence the cries of a mother watching a child buried because of police bullets. The moment you try to quantify life, you strip away dignity and turn tragedy into a transaction. It is immoral, insulting, and it is deep betrayal of the highest order to pretend that justice is something you can price. Scripture is clear. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Mark chapter 8 verse 36. To trade away the soul of the law society and the soul of justice itself for seats at the dictator's table is a sin that no amount of money or speeches can cleanse. Going forward and finalizing. So now we are told there is a panel of experts to calculate the value of Kenyan lives lost during protest. Let's help them with their formula. One young man shot dead by police equal to 2 million if he was unemployed. Kenyan shillings 5 million if he had a payslip. A mother beaten in the streets is equal to 1 million unless she had children. Then maybe add 500k per child. A father providing for his family 3 million minus deduction for economic disruptions caused by protests. A child's life, that one is priceless. But let's call it 800k because the state has a budget ceiling. This is the mockery Faith Odhiambo has signed up for. Putting numbers on coffins. No formula will ever balance the scales of justice. You don't quantify blunted, you don't reduce grief to digits. Every attempt to do so insults the dead and spits in the face of the living. And surely, it is a mockery. It is a chilly morning. Kenyan's top mathematicians gather in a room, chalk in hand, ready to serve the republic. They are given one task: calculate the value of life. They start scribbling furiously formulas. Trying to quantify the value of life. And that is something that I agree with. You can't quantify the value of life of a child. One thing, the MP of Embakasi East and Githongori MP yesterday said on a panel on Citizen TV, they said, if Ruto was to quantify the life of each young man or young woman killed in the streets of Nairobi during the protest, every family should be compensated with an amount of 800 million shillings each. If at least he wants to make sense of what happened in the year 2024 and in the year 2023. I would love to know, do you agree with what has been said? You know, Ruto is doing all this because of a speech that he is supposed to present at the United Nations General Assembly, which is supposed to start on 9th of this month in New York, United States of America. What is your take? I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment on the comment section. See you in our next video. This is the Kenyan Daily Report.